Wataru Endo. Perfect. Sound. Yeah, he comes into the side. Nobody really shocked by that. What I was a little bit surprised by was the fact that McAllister was also in the team, because it felt to me like we've seen loads of McAllister as 6, of course we have, and it felt to me like, you know, in this really busy sort of period of football's going on now, it's only going to get busier as well, but right now, in the midst of 4 games in 9 days, if you count the Europa League game from last week, it felt almost certain that Endo would come in and McAllister would drop out. Didn't. Both played. Whatever. Sound. But Endo tonight I thought was really good. Gets booked for a late one, and you are walking that tightrope whenever you've been booked. Certainly as a DM in that position, you do. There's a couple of moments where he's chasing people back and you're praying that he doesn't dive into it because, you know, he gets it wrong even slightly and he's off most probably. But in terms of his stats tonight, he won 4 out of his 7 ground duels, won 5 out of his 7 aerial duels as well. Give away 2 fouls, as we mentioned. 1-2 fouls, 2 clearances, successful with 2 out of 4 long balls, accurate passes 79%, but overall I think it was a good outing for him and another step in the right direction in terms of his development, in terms of his settling in terms of bedding in and understanding what Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp want from him. And I think, Jay, I'll come to you and talk about his performance tonight, but we see McAllister get battered and bruised tonight, essentially. So I'm not convinced he'll be ready for the weekend. So therefore, would you be absolutely comfortable with Wataru starting at Crystal Palace?
Yeah, I think these are the kind of games that I was a bit disappointed that he hadn't come in more, because I thought I want to see him against the likes of Crystal Palace, the likes of Sheffield United, maybe a Luton, or, you know, these kind of bottom 5 sides at home. You know, Endo's certainly going to be good enough for these, but he's put in a few decent consistent performances recently. He was a bit manic at times in the first few, and then he had a bad, was it Toulouse? But I mean, everyone was bad that night, but he had a few dodgy-ish performances in the Europa League. One decent one, God knows which one it was. I thought he was good. He didn't. It's weird with having Trent there, because he's the base of the midfield, and you think, right, you set the tempo, you control things, but Trent's doing that, so he doesn't get to do that. But still, his progressive passing is the thing for me that I wasn't expecting from him.
I agree, yeah.
I was expecting like a little, not Lee Catamol type, but like just
win it and give it.
A terrier type. You know, but he plays a great ball out wide to Diaz early on, which causes a chance. It's just that it's either one touch or trap it quickly, bang. You know, no like surveying the landscape. Like, he knows what, he's very decisive with his forward passing, which I really like. If he has to come into the team a bit more now, I think we're getting to the point now where the manager's trusting him a bit more. The fan base, and not that it's anything to do with us, but, you know, I think the fan base are going to start trusting him a little bit more. So yeah, promising. I think he's beginning to prove a lot of the doubters wrong now, and like, people are going, actually, it was quite a shrewd side, you know, whereas initially it was a bit like, who's this fella who we haven't heard of, you know? But
yeah, the not necessarily hearing of him thing is a factor in that, and the fact he spent so long of so much of his career obviously in Japan originally, and then he spent the last few years sort of staving off him single-handedly. Relegation in the Bundesliga with Stuttgart, you know, you do wonder, and you've just come away from being linked to like Moises Caicedo, and not in terms of even personnel, but the monetary was so different as well, because you've gone from 150 million to 16.5 million. It's a big old leap, there's a big disparity there. So I think the fan base were a little bit disillusioned by the signing, but as you say, the more you see of him, the more you think, oh yeah, he can do a job in these type of games. While we're talking about it, Jurgen Klopp has spoke about McAllister and his injury, knock, whatever you want to call it. He said it was a shame he got stepped on his knee early on and there was a cut there. As long as the wound was open, we just strapped it, which is what we see in the second half when he come out with purple strapping. It's nice that they got the same colour. That was impressive. Obviously it was painful, but he could play. Then we stitched it, but then obviously it got a little bit tighter. I mean, stitching it is, on that sort of thigh area. Not ideal. Then he couldn't move anymore. So now we have to see how long that will take. I hope not too long. So it does sound doubtful for the weekend.
Doubtful,
doesn't it? 100%. And which ties into what we're saying here. And, you know, Endo could have warranted a start regardless of McAllister's injury. Certainly as a 6. You know, we've seen McAllister in the 8 tonight, of course. But we've got the weekend at Palace. And then we've got the dead rubber, essentially, in Belgium next week as well. So there's a likelihood, Jack, that we're going to see Endo for the next 2 games now. And given what we've seen tonight, given what we've seen in recent weeks, I think we'd all be okay with that.
I think most people actually were, and I was probably one of them as well, was quite surprised that we hadn't seen that much of Endo, certainly in the league, and until more recently, because when I saw him against, I think it was in his first few appearances, he was played against Newcastle, he was played against, I can't quite remember who the game was before.
I think Bournemouth, he comes on,
it was in games where we had to play with 10 men, but he still did a good job, even though, albeit, he did as much as he could do when you're playing with 10 men. And I honestly thought that every other game he's played, he'd impressed me, and I was quite surprised that we hadn't done something like we have until tonight, which was played the likes of Endo, Szoboszlai, and McAllister or Gravenberch together, but with Endo playing that deepest role, certainly against the more physical teams, because I think even though McAllister is press proven, against physical sides, Endo seems to be the one that reminds me in a way of Kante, that little stereotype, good progressive passing, loves the tackle and loves the physical battles, which is perfect for these sorts of games where the other team will try and niggle you as much as they possibly can to unsell you and then take them on, which is what I thought we failed to do against Luton, not be decisive in those physical battles.
Absolutely, yeah. And ultimately he is a specialist 6, isn't he? And that's what we're crying out for all summer, and McAllister isn't that, and I think we've all had our sort of misgivings about him playing that role. We think he can do it, but he's done it along with Moises Caicedo alongside him. Is it fine when Trent goes in there? But yeah, I think Endo, again, you said it a moment ago, he's proving a lot of doubters wrong, I think. I don't think we've seen quite enough yet. Certainly not when it comes to sort of the elite level. Now, don't get me wrong, Premier League football is very much the elite level. I'm aware of that. However, whenever I want to compare or think about anything when it comes to the Reds or football generally, I always go to if you were playing Aston Villa away, as it is right now, or Real Madrid away, somewhere like that, you know what I mean? Pardon my sort of
away
joke.
From home.
Is that the guy? Is he the guy? And we haven't seen Endo be that guy yet.
No.
So you've got to sort of base it on that. And, I think for games like tonight and the type of games you're mentioning, no issue whatsoever. I think we've seen enough of Endo to know we can throw him into Palace at the weekend, that dead rubber afterwards. But then further down the line, when we got United and Arsenal in the space of 6-7 days, albeit not United of superpowers, is he that guy then? We'll have to wait and see, I guess. But, positive signs, he's making steps in the right direction, 100%.